You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Trump wipes out entire election agency. And nobody's sure what happens next, based on an article by Jessica Huseman, VoteBeat. Trump didn't just fire commissioners. He took aim at the machinery around elections. The power was the point. The source article is about a firing spree, but the political meaning is simpler. Donald Trump used presidential power to shut down the only federal agency devoted solely to election administration. This was not an administrative cleanup or a personnel dispute. It was a direct move against a bipartisan institution that exists to support how elections function. The actual power sat where it always sat, in the White House, backed by a Supreme Court willing to widen presidential removal authority. The commissioners did not lose relevance on their own. They were removed. A bipartisan shield, stripped bare. The Election Assistance Commission was built after the 2000 election to serve a narrow, technical role: federal funding, the mail registration form, voting system certification, and guidance to state and local officials. It was designed as a bipartisan commission precisely because Congress understood that election administration is too important to leave fully exposed to one president's whims. That design did not save it. Trump removed the Democratic commissioners by email, let the Republican commissioner resign, and left the agency with no members at all. The result is not neutral vacancy, it is functional paralysis. The court created the opening. The article notes the Supreme Court's recent removal power decisions, and that detail matters more than the usual legal fog suggests. The court weakened the old insulation around independent agencies and handed presidents more leverage over bodies that were supposed to resist raw political pressure. That matters because Trump does not need to invent a new theory of control. He can exploit a doctrine the court just handed him. The unresolved question is whether bipartisan election bodies like the EAC are covered by the same rule. That legal uncertainty is the opening heat is already using. What the freeze really means. The EAC does not run elections, and that distinction is important, but it does sit on a critical piece of election infrastructure. If the agency cannot act, it cannot move routine business, and it cannot be used as a vehicle to alter the federal voter registration form or voting system standards before the 2026 midterms. That is the practical consequence the article keeps in view. Freeze the commission, and you freeze a federal chokepoint that states rely on. The point is not spectacle. The point is leverage over the terms under which voting equipment gets certified and election guidance gets issued. The framing is too small. The source correctly treats this as a possible legal test, but the framing still risks shrinking the story into a procedural question about whether the removals will survive in court. That is too timid. The central fact is that Trump acted first and dared the system to catch up later. This is a recurring authoritarian pattern in plain sight. Seize the institution, then force everyone else to litigate the damage. The harm is not confusion. It is deliberate. First the president removes the people. Then the agency goes dark. Then the legal system gets asked whether the shutdown was technically allowed. The larger pattern. This is what institutional sabotage looks like when it wears a suit and cites legal doctrine. Trump is not merely reshaping the bureaucracy, he is learning which federal bodies can be hollowed out before anyone can stop him. The court has made that easier. Congress built bipartisan guardrails for a reason. The White House is now testing how much of that architecture can be destroyed without calling it destruction. The lesson is not that election administration is fragile in the abstract. The lesson is that democratic institutions are only as durable as the people willing to defend their independence against presidents who treat control as entitlement. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article. With the automated voice of Amy, thanks for listening.